The moment a single human appeared inside their most secure zone, General Lyra Voss knew one of two things had happened. Either their defense system had failed, or everything they believed about it was a lie. The alarm began as a low tone. Calm, precise, almost polite. Then the sound spread across the command center. Red indicators ignited one after another. Tactical displays shifted. Security feeds multiplied across the massive curved wall overlooking the operations floor. Officers stopped talking. Analysts froze at their stations. Even the artificial intelligence managing the fortress paused its routine reports. General Lyra Voss looked up from a strategic briefing and immediately felt something was wrong. Not dangerous. Impossible. The difference mattered. The fortress known as Bastion 9 floated above the outer edge of Solarian territory. It was not simply a military installation. It was the final defense line. The place every invasion simulation failed to penetrate. The place every hostile fleet avoided. The place built upon 6 centuries of accumulated military doctrine. Millions of sensors monitored every approach. Thousands of autonomous defense systems watched every corridor. Every access point required multiple layers of authorization. Nothing entered Bastion 9 without permission. Nothing. Yet the alarm continued. Lyra rose from her command chair. Her dark metallic uniform reflected the crimson emergency lights spreading through the room. Around her, officers exchanged uncertain glances. Nobody spoke first. Nobody wanted to explain what the data suggested. Finally, a young sensor specialist swallowed and turned toward her station. "General," she said carefully, "we have detected an unauthorized biological signature." Lyra folded her arms. Location: Sector 12. Several officers looked up immediately. Sector 12 was impossible. The area sat nearly 2 miles inside the protected core of the fortress. No docking ports. No transport corridors. No civilian access. No external entry points of any kind. Lyra walked toward the main display. Identity. The specialist hesitated. Human. Silence filled the command center. Lyra stared at the screen. The word remained unchanged. Human. Not a fleet. Not an infiltrator team. Not a hidden vessel. One person. One biological signature. A human male. The fortress artificial intelligence projected additional data. Height. Weight. Heart rate. Body temperature. Movement speed. Every metric appeared stable. The stranger was not running. He was not hiding. He was not attempting to escape detection. In fact, he appeared completely calm. "Show me visual confirmation." The display shifted. Security footage filled the wall. A corridor appeared. Bright overhead lighting. Clean metallic architecture. Empty hallway. Then a figure stepped into view. Human. Male. White skin. Dark gray expedition jacket. Utility equipment attached to his belt. Calm expression. Measured pace. He glanced directly toward the camera as he passed beneath it. Then he kept walking. The room remained silent. Lyra narrowed her eyes. Most intruders tried to avoid surveillance. This one seemed unconcerned, almost as if he wanted them to see him. "How did he enter?" she asked. Analysts immediately began searching. Sensor records, entry logs, docking manifests, transportation databases. Nothing. No shuttle arrival. No breach alert. No system malfunction. No unauthorized transmission. According to every record inside Bastion 9, the human did not exist. Yet the cameras continued showing him. Walking. Observing. Moving deeper into the fortress. Lyra studied the footage. Something about his behavior bothered her. Not because he looked threatening. The opposite. He looked familiar with the environment. Comfortable. As though he had been there before. Another officer turned from his workstation. Confusion was obvious in his voice. "General, every camera sees him." Lyra looked toward the tactical map. The human appeared as a bright marker moving steadily through restricted territory. No hesitation. No wrong turns. No uncertainty. He knew exactly where he was going. A cold feeling settled in the room. Bastion 9 was the most secure installation in Solarian space. Yet somewhere inside its protected core, a single human was walking through corridors he should not even know existed. Then the marker changed direction, straight toward a section of the fortress that was absent from every public map. And for the first time that day, General Lyra Voss felt something she had not experienced in years. Curiosity. General Lyra Voss had commanded fleets through solar storms, negotiated ceasefires between rival systems, and managed crises capable of destabilizing entire sectors of space. Yet nothing in her career prepared her for the sight of a single human casually walking through Bastion 9. The command center remained unusually quiet. Hundreds of officers monitored their stations, but conversation had disappeared. The giant tactical display dominated the room. At its center, one bright marker continued moving deeper into the fortress. Ethan Walker. Human. Unauthorized. Unexplained. Lyra stood with her hands clasped behind her back as streams of data flowed across the display. Every security team within 3 miles had already been redirected. Every surveillance network was focused on the same target. Yet the situation only became more confusing. "Report," she said. A senior analyst immediately responded. All access points remained secure. No evidence of forced entry. No docking anomalies. No transportation signatures. Lyra frowned. Internal system compromise? Negative. Artificial intelligence malfunction? Negative. Another officer turned from his console. "General, we have completed a full diagnostic scan of the fortress." He hesitated. Everything is functioning perfectly. That answer bothered her more than any failure would have. Perfect systems did not produce impossible humans. The main display shifted again. Ethan Walker entered another corridor. Bright white lighting reflected from polished metallic walls. He walked at an unhurried pace. No signs of stress. No signs of urgency. He occasionally glanced at nearby structures, as though confirming landmarks. Not searching. Confirming. Lyra noticed it immediately. Pause playback. The image froze. She stepped closer. Zoom. The camera focused on Ethan's face. Calm eyes. Relaxed posture. A man who appeared completely comfortable inside the most secure military installation in Solarian space. "He is not lost," she said quietly. Several officers exchanged uncertain looks. "General?" Lyra pointed toward the display. "Look at him. He is not exploring. He knows where he is going." Nobody answered, because everyone could see it. The human moved with purpose. Every turn appeared intentional. Every decision seemed predetermined. Then another alert appeared. The marker changed direction again. The tactical map expanded automatically. Lyra felt her stomach tighten. The destination sat inside a restricted section known only to senior command personnel. The area contained historical archives dating back centuries. Information so sensitive that even most admirals never received access. Ethan Walker was heading directly toward it. One of the analysts looked genuinely alarmed. "That section does not exist on any civilian or military navigation database." "I know," Lyra replied. "Then how does he know where it is?" Nobody had an answer. A new security feed appeared. Ethan approached a junction containing 6 identical corridors. No signs. No markers. No visible differences. He never slowed down. He chose the correct corridor instantly and continued forward. Several officers stared in disbelief. One quietly whispered something under his breath. Lyra ignored it. Her attention remained fixed on the screen. This was no longer a security incident. It was becoming a mystery. The fortress artificial intelligence suddenly interrupted the silence. "Notice. Subject has entered Observation Sector 4. Lyra immediately looked up. Observation Sector 4. Another impossible destination. That section had been sealed for nearly 50 years. No public records existed. No operational traffic entered the area. Yet Ethan walked through the access corridor as though following directions he had memorized long ago. Then something even stranger happened. The human stopped. For the first time since appearing inside the fortress, he stopped moving. Security cameras tracked him from multiple angles. Ethan slowly turned his head and looked directly toward one of the surveillance units. Not at random, directly at it. Then he smiled. It was not a threatening smile. Not arrogant. Not mocking. It looked almost amused, as though he knew exactly how many people were watching him. The command center became completely silent. Lyra stared at the screen. Ethan held the gaze of the camera for 2 full seconds. Then he continued walking. One of the younger officers finally spoke. "General." Lyra did not look away from the display. "Yes." The officer swallowed. "Do you get the feeling he wants us to follow him?" For the first time since the alarm began, Lyra considered a possibility she had not wanted to entertain. Maybe the human was not trying to avoid them. Maybe the human had entered Bastion 9 for a reason. And maybe that reason involved leading them somewhere they were never supposed to find. The first search teams arrived at Observation Sector 4 3 minutes later. They found nothing. General Lyra Voss watched the reports appear one after another across the command display. Corridor secure. Junction secure. Environmental systems normal. No unauthorized access detected. No human present. Yet every camera in the area had clearly shown Ethan Walker entering the sector. He had not vanished. He had not exited. According to the surveillance network, he should still be there. Run the footage again, Lyra ordered. The recording replayed across the main screen. Ethan entered the corridor, walked 67 feet, turned a corner, continued another 30 feet, then disappeared from every camera in the sector at exactly the same moment. No distortion, no interference, no signal loss. One frame, he was present. The next frame, he was gone. A senior technician shook his head. That is impossible. Lyra silently agreed. Bastion 9's surveillance network overlapped every 12 feet. Blind spots did not exist. The entire station had been designed around that principle. Yet Ethan had somehow slipped through a section where blind spots were theoretically impossible. Another officer approached her command platform. General, additional data from the human's movement pattern. Lyra accepted the report. Her eyes narrowed immediately. The highlighted route stretched across the fortress like a glowing thread. It connected multiple restricted sectors, historical archives, observation chambers, legacy storage facilities, research vaults. Every location shared one unusual characteristic. They were old, very old. Some had not been accessed in decades. Others had not been accessed in over a century. Lyra slowly looked back at the map. He is not wandering. No, General. He is following something. Nobody disagreed. The evidence had become difficult to ignore. Ethan Walker moved through Bastion 9 with the confidence of someone following a route that already existed inside his mind. Yet there was no logical explanation. Human records contained no evidence he had ever visited the fortress. He held no military clearance, no diplomatic access, no classified authorization. Officially, Ethan Walker should not know the station existed at all. Another alert appeared. New camera contact. The command center immediately shifted attention toward the feed. Ethan had reappeared nearly 2 miles away. Several officers actually turned in surprise. The location sat on the opposite side of the fortress from Observation Sector 4. Even at a full sprint, the distance required nearly 20 minutes of travel. Ethan had covered it in less than 4. Lyra stared at the timestamp, then at the location marker, then back to the timestamp. Neither changed. Explain. The room remained silent. No one could. The camera image showed Ethan standing inside a circular observation chamber overlooking the stars. The enormous viewing window stretched nearly 50 feet high. Beyond it, distant nebulae glowed against endless darkness. Ethan stood with his hands in his jacket pockets, looking outward, motionless, calm, almost reflective. Then something happened that made the room even quieter. Ethan turned toward the observation camera. Once again, he looked directly into the lens, directly toward the people watching him. Slowly, he raised one hand. Not a threat, not a signal, more like a greeting. Then he pointed toward the far side of the chamber. Several security officers immediately enlarged the image. The indicated section appeared completely ordinary. Metallic wall, environmental controls, maintenance access panel. Nothing unusual. Scan that location, Lyra ordered. Sensors activated immediately. Results appeared seconds later. The technician operating the system suddenly froze. General, report. The technician looked genuinely confused. There is a sealed compartment behind that wall. Lyra felt a chill run through her. What kind of compartment? Unknown. More scans followed. Deeper scans. Historical scans. Archive searches. The answer remained unchanged. The compartment existed. It had existed since the fortress was constructed. Yet no current record explained its purpose. No maintenance logs referenced it. No engineering diagrams listed it. It was as though an entire room had been hidden inside Bastion 9 from the beginning. Ethan lowered his hand. Then he continued walking, leaving the observation chamber without hesitation, as if his job there was finished. The command center remained silent for several seconds. Finally, Lyra stepped closer to the display. Her reflection stared back from the polished surface. A human who should not be there, finding places nobody knew existed, revealing secrets hidden inside their most secure fortress. and somehow staying one step ahead of everyone trying to understand him. Then another notification appeared. Ethan had changed direction again. This time he was heading toward the oldest section of Bastion 9. A section so restricted that even General Lyra Voss had never been granted full access. The oldest section of Bastion 9 had no official name. Most personnel referred to it simply as the Foundation Wing. The designation appeared harmless, almost forgettable. Yet every officer serving long enough inside the fortress eventually learned the same unwritten rule. Do not ask questions about the Foundation Wing. General Lyra Voss had followed that rule for years. Now a human was walking directly toward it. The command center lights seemed dimmer as the tactical display updated. Ethan Walker moved through corridors rarely seen by living personnel. Dustless floors stretched beneath pale, overhead illumination. Ancient walls carried design patterns no longer used in modern Solarian architecture. The deeper he traveled, the older everything became. Security teams? Lyra asked. Maintaining distance, an officer replied. As instructed. She nodded. She had ordered it herself. At first the decision had confused her staff. Standard protocol demanded immediate containment. Yet instinct told her something different. Every attempt to predict Ethan's behavior had failed. Every assumption had proven wrong. Chasing him through the fortress felt less like pursuing an intruder and more like following a guide who already knew the destination. Another camera feed appeared. Ethan entered a circular corridor lined with sealed doors. Hundreds of them, each identical, each marked by faded symbols that had disappeared from common use centuries earlier. He never paused to examine them, never hesitated. He simply continued forward. Archive query, Lyra ordered. How old is that corridor? Analysts began searching. Several seconds passed. Then confusion spread across multiple stations. General, what is it? The construction records do not match. Lyra turned. Explain. The analyst enlarged a collection of ancient documents. According to official records, that corridor was built 172 years ago. And the analyst looked uncomfortable. The material composition dates back over 600 years. Silence settled across the room. Another inconsistency. Another impossible detail hidden beneath layers of accepted history. Lyra folded her arms. The fortress suddenly felt less familiar than it had that morning. On the display, Ethan finally stopped walking. He stood before a large metallic door positioned at the very end of the corridor. Unlike the others, this one carried no markings, no identification code, no security designation, just smooth dark alloy, the kind used in construction methods long abandoned. The human studied it quietly. Then he reached into his jacket pocket. Several officers leaned forward. Lyra narrowed her eyes. Ethan removed a small object. Circular. Metallic. Worn with age. Enhance image. The camera zoomed closer. The object looked like a medallion. Or perhaps an access token. Strange symbols covered its surface. The command center artificial intelligence immediately began analysis. Results appeared seconds later. Then vanished. Then reappeared. System instability detected, one technician announced. Cause. Unknown. The room exchanged uneasy looks. Bastion 9's systems did not become unstable. Yet the moment the object appeared, multiple archive networks experienced errors simultaneously. Ethan placed the medallion against the center of the door. No dramatic reaction followed. No alarms. No lights. Nothing happened at all. Then a soft tone echoed through the corridor. The sound barely registered through the camera feed. The door slowly opened. Every officer in the command center froze. Lyra stared at the screen. Access authorization recognized. The artificial intelligence announced. The room became completely silent. Lyra turned toward the nearest technician. Recognized by whom? No answer came. Because nobody knew. The database contained no record of the door. No record of the authorization token. No record explaining why a human possessed credentials capable of opening a section hidden from the fortress itself. Ethan stepped through the doorway. Beyond it stretched darkness. Not ordinary darkness. The kind created by a room untouched for generations. Ancient lights slowly activated one after another as he entered. Shadows retreated across walls no camera had ever recorded before. Then the first image arrived. A single frame from inside the chamber. Rows of forgotten servers. Obsolete archive cores. historical storage systems predating the fortress by centuries. And at the center of the room stood a monument-sized display bearing a title written in ancient Solarian script. The artificial intelligence translated it automatically. The words appeared across every screen in the command center at the exact same moment. Project Genesis. Founder access only. General Lyra Voss felt her pulse quicken. Bastion 9 had no founders in any official record. Yet somewhere inside the oldest room of the fortress, a human had just opened a door leading directly to them. The room hidden behind the ancient door should not have existed. General Lyra Voss stood motionless before the command display as new images continued arriving from the chamber. Dust-free surfaces reflected pale white light. Massive archive cores stretched from floor to ceiling. Rows of silent processors occupied space that no engineering blueprint acknowledged. Everything about the chamber contradicted official history. Yet it was there, waiting. And somehow Ethan Walker had known exactly where to find it. The command center remained unusually quiet. No one seemed willing to speak first. Every officer stared at the same images. The words displayed above the central archive terminal lingered in everyone's thoughts. Project Genesis. Founder access only. Bastion 9 had been operational for centuries. Entire generations of commanders had served within its walls. Yet no record mentioned founders. The fortress simply appeared in history as if it had always existed. Lyra slowly stepped toward her command console. Open every archive reference connected to Project Genesis. Analysts immediately obeyed. Thousands of files were searched simultaneously. Military databases, historical repositories, construction records, government archives, educational systems. Nothing. Not a single reference appeared. Impossible, one researcher whispered. Lyra agreed. A project significant enough to occupy the oldest section of the fortress should have left traces somewhere. Instead, it was as though an entire chapter of history had been carefully removed. Another camera feed appeared. Ethan walked deeper into the chamber. The ancient systems around him continued activating one by one. Soft lights illuminated forgotten terminals. Holographic displays flickered awake after centuries of inactivity. Yet Ethan did not appear surprised. He moved through the room with quiet familiarity. Not excitement. Not confusion. Familiarity. That detail troubled Lyra more than anything else. The human stopped before the central archive terminal, a circular platform surrounded by transparent data screens. Ancient symbols flowed across the displays. Symbols few living scholars could read. Ethan studied them for several seconds. Then he smiled. Translate that display, Lyra ordered. The artificial intelligence complied. New text appeared across the command center screens. Access request verified. Legacy protocol active. Founder lineage confirmed. The room froze. Several officers actually turned away from their stations and stared at one another. One of the senior analysts looked pale. Founder lineage? Lyra repeated. The words felt strange, even saying them aloud. Another data stream appeared beneath the first. Genetic verification completed. Human designation accepted. Priority access granted. Silence filled the command center. This time it lasted much longer. Lyra read the message again. Then a third time. Human designation accepted. Not tolerated. Not recognized. Accepted. As though the system had been expecting humans from the very beginning. A communication officer finally found his voice. General, if those records are authentic. He hesitated. Then humans were connected to Bastion 9 before the Solarian military existed. Nobody answered, because the implication sounded absurd. Yet every piece of evidence pointed in the same direction. Ethan had not forced access. He had not hacked security. He had not bypassed defenses. The fortress itself was granting him permission. Then something happened inside the archive chamber. A large holographic display activated above the central platform. Thousands of stars appeared in a rotating three-dimensional map. Ancient navigation routes spread across the projection. Entire sectors of space emerged. Some recognizable, others completely unknown. Ethan looked upward. The hologram reflected in his eyes. Slowly, he reached toward one section of the map, a cluster near the edge of known space. The moment his hand approached the image, warning lights appeared across the display. Not security warnings. System warnings. Critical warnings. The command center artificial intelligence immediately reacted. Alert. Archive protocol instability detected. Lyra's attention sharpened. Cause. Unknown. More warnings appeared. Throughout Bastion 9, systems began responding. Doors unlocking. Hidden databases awakening. Long-dormant networks reconnecting. It felt less like a malfunction and more like a machine remembering something. Ethan lowered his hand. The warnings stopped instantly. The fortress stabilized. Every officer in the room stared at the display. The message was impossible to ignore. Whatever Ethan knew, it was connected to the deepest layers of Bastion 9. Layers even its commanders did not understand. Then, for the first time since entering the fortress, Ethan spoke aloud. The chamber microphones captured every word. His voice was calm, almost disappointed. So it is still here. General Lyra Voss felt a chill run through her. Because Ethan had not sounded surprised by what he found. He had sounded relieved. The silence inside the command center felt heavier after Ethan Walker spoke. For simple words. So it is still here. General Lyra Voss replayed the sentence in her mind while staring at the archive chamber feed. The human stood beneath the enormous star map, illuminated by pale blue light from systems that should never have existed. Nothing about his reaction resembled discovery. He had not found something unexpected. He had confirmed something he already suspected. That realization disturbed her more than any security breach. Around the room, analysts continued searching historical databases. Thousands of records flowed through military networks. Every result returned the same answer. Nothing. No reference to Project Genesis. No founder records. No explanation for why an ancient military installation recognized human genetic authorization. The deeper they searched, the larger the gaps became. It was as if someone had carefully removed entire sections of history and left only enough information for future generations to accept the official story. Then another alert appeared. The archive chamber was accessing external records. Lyra immediately focused on the display. Ethan had activated a terminal beside the central platform. Ancient symbols moved rapidly across the screen. Translation systems struggled to keep pace. Finally, the text stabilized. The room fell silent once again. Original purpose: Bastion 9 Preservation Facility. Not military installation. Several officers exchanged confused looks. Lyra stepped closer to the display. Read that again. The artificial intelligence complied. Original purpose: Bastion 9 Preservation Facility. Not military installation. A cold feeling settled across the room. Bastion 9 was considered the strongest defensive fortress in Solarian space. Entire military doctrines had been built around it. Yet according to the oldest records inside the structure, defense had never been its primary function. It had been preserving something. The question was what? Ethan continued reviewing information. Another document appeared. Then another. Layers of forgotten history unfolded before him. Ancient construction logs. Legacy system reports. Records dating back hundreds of years before the fortress officially entered service. Then one line appeared that caused every conversation in the command center to stop. Founding coalition members, Human Alliance. Solarian Directorate. 8 additional civilizations. Lyra stared at the screen. Human Alliance. Not modern humanity. Not Earth Federation. An older designation. One she had never encountered. Yet there it was. Listed first. Before her own people. A communication officer slowly lowered his headset. General, if these records are genuine. He never finished the sentence. He did not need to. The implication was obvious. Humanity had not stumbled into galactic affairs as outsiders. They had been present from the beginning. The archive chamber lights suddenly dimmed. New symbols appeared across the central hologram. Ethan stopped reading. His attention shifted toward a section of the star map, rotating slowly above him. One distant region began glowing. A cluster of systems located far beyond current trade routes. Beyond exploration zones. Beyond mapped territory. What is that? Lyra asked. Analysts immediately began comparing coordinates. The answer arrived seconds later. Unknown region. Unknown. There are no modern records. Ethan stepped closer to the hologram. His expression changed for the first time. Not relief. Not curiosity. Concern. Genuine concern. The human studied the highlighted region in silence. Then he reached toward another control interface. Instantly, warning indicators erupted across the archive chamber. Not local warnings. Fortress-wide warnings. Systems throughout Bastion 9 reacted simultaneously. Power fluctuations. Data synchronization events. long dormant networks coming online. It felt as though the entire structure was awakening from a centuries-long sleep. The artificial intelligence spoke. Alert. Legacy protocol initiating. Lyra felt tension spread through the command center. Legacy protocol for what? No answer came. Then a new message appeared across every screen in the fortress. The words were written in ancient script before automatically translating into modern language. Emergency preservation sequence. Status: incomplete. Time remaining: unknown. Ethan stared at the message. His jaw tightened slightly. For the first time all day, he looked worried. And that frightened Lyra more than anything she had seen so far. Because if a man who knew these secrets was suddenly concerned, then whatever Bastion 9 had been preserving might be running out of time. A low vibration moved through Bastion 9. Not an explosion. Not a malfunction. Something deeper. Something structural. General Lyra Voss felt it beneath her boots before the sensors reported it. Across the command center, displays flickered as dormant systems continued awakening throughout the fortress. The ancient preservation sequence had not simply activated a hidden archive. It was affecting the entire station. Officers exchanged uneasy glances. Bastion 9 had always been reliable, predictable, every function documented, every protocol understood. Yet within the span of a single hour, a human had revealed hidden chambers, erased histories, forgotten alliances, and now a system older than the fortress itself. Lyra kept her eyes fixed on the main display. Ethan Walker remained inside the archive chamber. The pale blue glow from the star map reflected across his face. He looked less like an intruder now and more like someone arriving at a destination he had spent years searching for. The thought unsettled her. Another warning appeared. Power fluctuations had spread into civilian sectors of the station. Environmental systems were adjusting automatically. Data archives were unlocking. Thousands of files previously classified beyond command clearance were becoming accessible. Contain it, Lyra ordered. Technicians immediately complied. Moments later, they looked back with frustration. General, the system is overriding security authority. Whose authority? Silence followed. Then the answer appeared automatically across the display. Founder priority access. The room became quiet again. Nobody liked that answer, especially because no one knew who the founders actually were. Then the chamber microphones activated. For the first time since entering Bastion 9, Ethan appeared to be speaking directly to someone. Not the command center. Not security personnel. Someone else. How much time is left? He asked. A voice answered. Ancient. Artificial. Calm. It seemed to emerge from every surface inside the archive chamber simultaneously. Emergency preservation sequence remains incomplete. Ethan's expression hardened slightly. That is not what I asked. A pause followed. Then the voice responded. Estimated failure threshold, 7 hours, 22 minutes. The command center erupted with conversation. Analysts began talking over one another. Officers demanded clarification. Lyra raised a hand, and silence immediately returned. Her attention remained fixed on the display. 7 hours. Failure threshold. The words carried implications she did not like. Ethan seemed to share her concern. Show me affected sectors. The hologram shifted. New images appeared above the archive platform. Hundreds of systems across Bastion 9 illuminated in red. Power grids, data cores, communication relays, life support backups. Every critical network in the fortress connected to a single hidden structure buried beneath the station. The image expanded. Lyra leaned closer. The structure was enormous, older than the fortress itself, vast enough to occupy nearly a third of the station's internal volume. Yet no official blueprint mentioned it. No maintenance records referenced it. Entire generations had lived and worked above something they never knew existed. Ethan studied the projection in silence. Then he closed his eyes briefly, as if confirming a suspicion he had hoped was wrong. It is failing, isn't it? He asked. Affirmative. The artificial voice remained emotionless. Preservation matrix degradation has exceeded safe parameters. Another vibration moved through the fortress, slightly stronger this time. Lights dimmed for half a second before stabilizing. Lyra noticed concern spreading across the faces of her officers. The same concern she felt herself. Whatever was happening had been occurring long before Ethan arrived. He had not caused the problem. He had found it. Then the realization hit her. The human had never attempted sabotage. Never disabled security. Never stolen information. Everything he had done pointed toward a single objective. Finding this place. Finding this system. Finding this failure. Ethan opened his eyes and looked toward the ancient star map. You waited too long. Correction, the artificial intelligence replied. We waited for authorized access. The command center fell silent. Lyra felt a chill run through her. Authorized access. Not any access. Human access. Suddenly, every impossible detail began fitting together. The fortress had not resisted Ethan because it had been waiting for him. Then a new alert appeared across every screen. External communication channels were activating automatically. Thousands of encrypted transmissions were preparing to launch beyond Solarian territory. Ethan looked up sharply. For the first time all day, he seemed genuinely alarmed. And when the ancient intelligence spoke again, General Lyra Voss finally understood that the mystery inside Bastion 9 was far larger than her fortress, her military, or even her civilization. Legacy recall signal initiated, the voice announced. Searching for surviving coalition members. The command center remained frozen for several seconds after the announcement. Searching for surviving coalition members. The words echoed through Bastion 9 like a message from another age. General Lyra Voss stared at the display while encrypted transmissions launched across space at impossible speeds. Ancient communication arrays buried deep within the fortress were awakening one after another. Systems nobody knew existed were suddenly performing functions nobody understood. Yet one person clearly did. Ethan Walker stood beneath the glowing star map, his expression caught somewhere between concern and resignation. He looked like a man watching an old prediction come true. Stop the recall signal, Lyra ordered. Technicians immediately attempted to comply. Their efforts failed. One by one, authorization requests were denied. Founder-level restrictions blocked every command. General, a systems officer said quietly, we no longer have control of the transmission network. Lyra felt the weight of those words. Bastion 9 had always answered to its commanders. Now it was answering to something older, something that considered current leadership temporary. Inside the archive chamber, Ethan finally spoke again. How many recipients remain active? The ancient intelligence paused before answering. Coalition membership database heavily degraded. More lights illuminated across the star map. Small markers appeared in distant sectors. Most flickered weakly before disappearing. Entire civilizations were gone. Entire histories reduced to fragments. Yet several signals remained. Active. Waiting. The command center watched in silence. Confirmed coalition descendants detected, the intelligence announced. Ethan closed his eyes briefly. Not from relief. From sadness. As though the number was smaller than he expected. Then another message appeared across every screen. Preservation matrix critical. Structural failure probability increasing. Lyra immediately focused on the warning. What exactly is the preservation matrix? This time the question was answered. Not by the artificial intelligence. By Ethan. His voice carried through the chamber speakers. Calm. Direct. It is the reason Bastion 9 exists. Every officer turned toward the display. For the first time all day, the human was offering answers. Ethan stepped closer to the central console. Ancient holograms reflected across his face. This station was never built to stop invasions. The room became perfectly silent. It was built to protect knowledge. More archive files appeared around him. Historical images. Scientific records. Maps. Agreements. Entire libraries. Thousands of years ago, the coalition realized something. Ethan continued studying the displays. Civilizations do not disappear because they lose wars. The hidden construct occupied nearly a third of the fortress. It had been protecting continuity. Then another vibration rolled through the fortress. Stronger than before. Lights flickered. Several displays briefly lost synchronization. The artificial intelligence immediately responded. Matrix degradation accelerating. Ethan's expression darkened. How long now? Estimated failure threshold, 6 hours. The room fell silent again. The countdown was shrinking. The situation was worsening. Then the ancient intelligence revealed the truth that changed everything. Clarification. Ethan looked up. So did Lyra. The voice continued. Current degradation was not caused by age. A pause followed. Ethan Walker had never come to infiltrate Bastion 9. He had come to save it. For several seconds, nobody spoke. He was the only person who seemed to know what was happening. "Can the Matrix be repaired?" she asked. This time she spoke directly through the Fortress communication network. Her voice echoed into the hidden chamber. Ethan looked up toward one of the surveillance lenses. For the first time all day, the two finally spoke to each other. "Yes," he answered, "but not by me alone." Lyra frowned. "Explain." Ethan turned toward the glowing archive systems surrounding him. The Coalition never trusted a single civilization with this responsibility. He gestured toward the star map. Several distant markers still shone across unexplored regions of space. The preservation matrix was designed to survive because many species protected it together. The ancient intelligence confirmed his statement. Founder protocol verified. Another notification appeared across every display in the fortress. Incoming response detected. Then another, and another. Across the ancient star map, new points of light awakened. Descendants, successors, survivors of civilizations long believed lost to history. Some signals came from distant research colonies, others from forgotten observatories hidden beyond modern trade routes. One originated from a vessel drifting between stars. The recall signal had worked. The Coalition was gone, but its legacy was still alive. The command center watched as response after response arrived. Not military fleets, not armies, archivists, scientists, historians, caretakers, people who had spent generations preserving fragments of knowledge without fully understanding where those fragments originated. Ethan released a slow breath. Relief finally appeared on his face. "Good," he said quietly. "We are not too late." The fortress trembled once more. Then something unexpected happened. The warning lights stopped flashing. The artificial intelligence processed the incoming responses for several seconds before speaking again. Emergency preservation sequence updated. Everyone waited. Probability of total matrix failure reduced from 93% to 4%. The room erupted with disbelief. Officers stared at one another. Analysts checked their data repeatedly. The numbers remained unchanged. Bastion 9 was stabilizing. Not because of a weapon. Not because of a military operation. Because people had answered a call for help. Lyra looked toward the image of Ethan Walker. The human stood quietly in the center of the chamber. He did not celebrate. He did not claim victory. He simply watched the ancient systems continue their work. "One question," Lyra said. Ethan met the camera's gaze. "How did you breach our final defense line?" A faint smile appeared on his face. "I did not." Silence followed. Ethan looked around the hidden archive, then toward the countless stars displayed above him. "Your defenses were never protecting a fortress." He paused. "They were protecting a memory." The command center became quiet again. This time not from confusion, from understanding. Bastion 9 had not failed. Its purpose had simply been forgotten. The human had not defeated their security. He had reminded them why it existed. Hours later, as the first Coalition descendants began transmitting restoration protocols, General Lyra Voss stood alone beside the command center observation window. Beyond the glass stretched the endless darkness of space. Somewhere inside the fortress, Ethan Walker continued helping systems older than any living civilization. Lyra watched the stars in silence. The human had arrived alone. He had crossed every barrier they possessed. Yet he had taken nothing. He had only saved what everyone else forgot was worth protecting. And for the first time since the alarms began, General Lyra Voss understood why a single human had reached the heart of Bastion 9. The fortress had recognized him long before anyone else did.